Clara was a 30-year-old freelance photographer living in Nairobi. She had built her life with hard work, traveling along dusty roads, capturing portraits of market women, and documenting weddings that carried deep meaning. Her camera was not just a tool. It was her voice, her way of telling stories no one else noticed. She was proud of paying her own way, proud that every shilling she earned came from the sweat of her brow and the vision in her eye. But at home her parents never seemed satisfied. They often treated her independence as arrogance, and whenever she succeeded they expected a share. On her father's 50th birthday, Clara arrived with a carefully chosen gift, a set of framed photographs she had taken of him and their family, each image polished and glowing. The hall was filled with laughter and music as relatives celebrated. Clara placed the gift in his hands, smiling warmly. But before she could enjoy the evening, her father pulled her aside. His tone was heavy, more command than request. "We need $145,000 for a new business," he said flatly. Clara froze, her smile slipping. "Dad, that's impossible. I don't have that kind of money." He frowned, his eyes narrowing. "Don't make me repeat myself." Behind them, music and chatter carried on as though the world hadn't shifted. Clara drew a deep breath, her heart pounding, and whispered firmly, "No." The word was sharp, final. His jaw clenched. Her mother soon joined them, her lips curling into a small smile that never reached her eyes. "You'll regret this stubbornness," she whispered, her voice coated with fake sweetness. Clara felt a chill settle deep in her bones. An hour later, Clara wandered into the garden for some air. The birthday guests laughed by the pool, but her father stood near the koi pond holding her laptop. It was her most precious possession, worth nearly $5,000 and filled with projects she couldn't afford to lose. Clara froze in disbelief. "Dad, careful," she said quickly, stepping closer. But he smirked, his grip loosening. "Oh, sorry," he muttered mockingly and let it slip. The laptop crashed into the water with a loud splash. Clara gasped as bubbles rose and ripples spread across the pond. Her chest tightened as if the water was sinking into her lungs. She wanted to scream, to leap in and save it, but shock rooted her to the spot. Her mother appeared at his side, clapping softly. "Accidents happen," she said smoothly, her eyes cold and merciless. Clara stared at them both, her heart breaking in silence. The party music went on behind her. No one noticed. No one cared. She swallowed the lump in her throat and walked away quietly, her dignity intact, even as her lifeline sank beneath the water. That night, back in her small rented room, Clara did not cry. She did not even call a friend to complain. Instead, she placed her soaked bag aside, opened her desk drawer and pulled out her backup hard drive. "They think they can break me," she whispered, plugging it in. Slowly, the files began to restore, lighting her screen. Rage wasn't what she felt. It was something colder, sharper. A plan forming in silence. The next morning, Clara dragged the drowned laptop from her bag. She tried to charge it. No light flickered, no sound hummed. It was gone. That machine had carried her largest project, a campaign contract that could have earned her 10 times its value. She clenched her fists, her heart steady. Her father had not dropped it by mistake. He had destroyed it on purpose. Clara sat heavily on her bed and reached for her phone. She opened her banking app. Years ago she had set up a joint account with her parents for emergencies. She froze, staring at the numbers on the screen. $12,800. Her money. Her sweat. Her long nights editing photos. Her parents had dipped into it before, always with excuses. But not this time. With firm taps, Clara froze their access. The app confirmed. Only her fingerprints could unlock the account now. Her pulse quickened, but her face stayed calm. Then she logged into their shared cloud service, where her parents had shamelessly stored their own files. She revoked their permissions with one final click. "No more leeching," she whispered. Her chest burned with a quiet fire. She wasn't just saving her money, she was reclaiming her life. If they thought they could ruin her career and still enjoy her resources, they were about to learn otherwise. By noon, Clara's phone buzzed. It was Miriam, an old colleague from a photography studio. "Clara," she wrote urgently, "your dad's emailing investors claiming you're his business partner." Clara's stomach dropped. She called immediately. "Miriam, are you certain?" she asked, her voice sharp. "Yes," Miriam replied. "He sent one to our client. He's boasting that you're leading the creative side of his new venture. Clara's jaw tightened, her silence heavy. Her father wasn't just sabotaging her work. He was stealing her name. Can you forward me those emails? Clara asked. Of course, Miriam replied without hesitation. But Clara, you need to stop him before it spreads further. Clara nodded though Miriam couldn't see. She hung up and stared at the ceiling. The betrayal was spreading, woven into lies that could poison her reputation. Moments later, another message popped up, this time in the family group chat. Her Aunt Juliet typed, Clara, you are selfish. Your parents need support. Her cousin David added, it was just an accident. Why are you making it so big? Clara's eyes burned, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. She wanted to scream the truth at them. She wanted to shout about the koi pond, about her father's smirk, about her mother's cold smile. But she didn't. Instead, she placed her phone face down and whispered, they've chosen their side. And I choose mine. Clara leaned back against the wall of her tiny room, her thoughts racing. The client deadline was brutal. Losing the laptop could have wrecked her completely, but the backup drive had saved her. The files were intact, though the hours ahead would be long. She pressed her palms together, breathing slowly. They don't just want money, she thought. They want to break me. But she was no longer the little girl who obeyed every order out of fear. She was Clara, a woman who had fought for every coin, every photograph, every chance to stand on her own. 2 days later, she called Miriam again. What happens if someone uses my identity to pitch a business? She asked. Miriam didn't hesitate. It's fraud, Clara. You can sue, but you'll need evidence. Collect every email, every text. Clara's chest tightened at the word fraud. It wasn't just cruelty anymore. It was criminal. That afternoon, Miriam forwarded her another email, this time to an investor named Victor. In it, her father had written, Clara is fully committed and leading the vision. Clara's hands shook, but her voice was steady as she whispered, I never agreed to this. She opened a new folder on her computer and titled it Evidence. Piece by piece, she began building her defense. That evening, Clara opened her laptop and searched the local business forum. Her heart thudded when she found a bold post under her father's name. My daughter Clara is driving our project with her photography expertise. The comments were full of applause and interest. Clara took screenshots of everything. Post likes, replies. You're not just stealing my work, she murmured. You're trying to steal my life. Her phone buzzed. It was David, her cousin. Clara, are you really part of this business? His tone was less certain now, more careful. Clara typed back, no, David. I'm not involved at all. Not in any way. A long pause followed, then another ping. He sent a screenshot, her father's text to him from 3 weeks earlier. Clara is all in. It's a done deal. Clara stared at the proof, her breath catching. She forwarded it to Miriam. Miriam called at once. This is huge, she said. Don't confront him yet. Keep gathering. Get everything into a clean timeline. Clara nodded, jaw set. I'll build the file and make it airtight, she replied. No arguments, no shouting. Just the truth. Clara poured tea and began combing through old messages. She found a group chat months back where her father casually asked, send me your client list for a small family project. At the time she had ignored it. Now it was a clear step in his plan. She saved everything. Dates, names, context. By nightfall she had 16 screenshots, 3 emails and David's forwarded text. The folder labeled Evidence looked like a wall of stone. Almost there, she whispered. She drafted a precise email to Victor, the investor named in her father's pitch. Dear Victor, I have no involvement in my father's venture. Statements naming me as a partner or creative lead are false. See attached proofs. She attached screenshots and pressed send. She exhaled, not from fear but from clarity. I won't let lies carry my name. After that she checked the client campaign files from her backup drive. They were intact but needed hours of fresh edits. She rolled her shoulders, set a timer and began. Every keystroke was proof she was still standing. Every frame she corrected was another step away from their control. In the morning she reviewed the joint account again. Freezing access had been a shield. Closure would be a door that never reopened. Clara transferred the $12,800 into her personal account and closed the joint account entirely. The confirmation flashed on screen. No more open doors, she said softly. Minutes later her phone buzzed. A text from her father. What lies are you feeding Victor? You're ruining everything. Fix this now, Clara, or you'll regret it. Clara read it twice and set the phone down. Rang again, her mother. Clara let it go to voicemail and listened only once. Honey, you're hurting your father. Why are you turning against us? The words were soft but the pressure was sharp. She deleted it without a reply. Then she opened a clean document and began a timeline. Dates, places, messages, the laptop, the forum post, the investor emails. She titled it Misuse of Name and Property, Chronology. If they want war, they'll meet order, she said. She sent the draft timeline to Miriam, who answered with a thumbs up and one line. Next step, legal. 3 days later, Miriam connected her with a lawyer named Ruth. They met in a small office above a bookshop. Ruth listened quietly, then said, We'll send a cease and desist. Make it firm and final. Together they crafted the letter. Stop using Clara's name, reputation, and work in connection with your business. Retract all statements already made. Evidence attached. Ruth printed it and slid it across the table. We'll attach everything, 20 screenshots for emails and your cousin's text. We'll also notify the investor who contacted you and the platform hosting that forum post. Clara's hands didn't shake as she signed. Ruth nodded. Once this is sent, don't argue with them. Any response should be in writing and through counsel. Focus on your work. Clara stepped into the hallway afterward and breathed in the smell of paper and dust. The world felt steady again, like the tripod she carried to every job. She walked home and hit send, to her father, her mother, and Victor. This, she whispered to her screen, is a line you cannot cross. By afternoon her father fired back online. A fresh forum post appeared. My daughter is spreading lies to ruin me. She's ungrateful and sabotaging our family venture. He gathered comments fast. Some sympathetic, some suspicious. Clara took screenshots of every line, every timestamp. Document, don't debate, she reminded herself. Her phone pinged. David again. Another screenshot. This one cut like glass. A message her father had sent to a relative. Tossed her camera in the pond. She'll think twice before defying us. Clara closed her eyes. The truth was uglier than the splash she still heard in her dreams. She replied, Thank you, David. This helps. He texted back, I'm sorry, Clara. I should have believed you sooner. She put the new proof into the folder and sent it to Ruth. Ruth's reply came quickly. Good. We'll add this to a defamation and property damages file. Keep your head down. We are winning this with the record. Hours later, an email arrived from Victor. Thank you for clarifying. I am withdrawing my interest in the venture. Clara exhaled, eyes wet but steady. She forwarded the note to Ruth and Miriam. Miriam called, laughter in her voice. 3 more investors just pulled out, Clara. Your father's pitch is collapsing. Clara leaned back in her chair. She hadn't shouted. She hadn't begged. She had used truth, and the truth had done its work. On the forum the tide shifted. Comments appeared. Where's the contract? Why would a professional photographer confirm none of this? This smells wrong. Moderators flagged her father's slander post for review. Clara captured the thread and saved it. In the quiet apartment she returned to her client campaign, adjusting color curves and fixing skin tones with slow, careful passes. The work felt like stitching a torn fabric. One precise thread at a time. Her phone buzzed. Miriam again. Proud of you. Keep editing. Your name is clearing in real time. Clara smiled faintly. And I'm delivering my deadline. She clicked export, watched the progress bar crawl forward and whispered, 1 frame at a time. By week's end, Ruth emailed a brief update. The forum had removed the slanderous post after reviewing the cease and desist and the evidence. Clara opened the site to confirm. In place of her father's accusations were quiet gaps and a few new threads wondering if he had lied. She didn't celebrate, she documented. Screenshot. Then a message from David. Aunt Juliet has stopped defending them. She's quiet now. People are stepping back. Clara read it twice. Even the loudest voices had grown unsure. She sat on the edge of her bed and looked at her camera bag. Truth takes time, she said softly, but it stands. She spent the evening organizing her hard drives, labeling folders and backing up the new campaign delivery. In her notebook she wrote 2 lines. Protect your name. Protect your work. She closed the cover and placed it beside the camera. For the first time in days, she slept without waking to the sound of imaginary bubbles and breaking glass. A neighbor from her parents' street called Miriam, and the rumor found its way to Clara. Without investors, the venture had no lifeline. Bills piled up. They'd even sold their car. Clara listened without triumph. I didn't ruin them, she told Miriam. They ruined themselves. She turned back to her own future. A national magazine confirmed a spring campaign and wired an advance of $3,200. She watched the payment land in her personal account, untouchable by anyone but her. Shortly after, a gallery in Mombasa invited her to exhibit her desert portraits. On opening night, Clara stood in a room of frames and soft light, the hum of quiet praise moving around her. Your eye is honest, a woman said gently. A man added, your portraits feel like prayer. Clara smiled, small and grateful. Under the glow of the gallery lights, she felt the last cold thread of the koi pond snap and fall away. When her phone vibrated with another family message, she silenced it and slid the device into her bag. Tonight belonged to the work. The next days brought a new wave of messages from unknown numbers. Please talk to us. We're still your family. Clara blocked them as they came. Then a handwritten letter slipped under her studio door. She held it, felt its weight, and dropped it into the bin unopened. Boundaries were not anger. They were respect, for herself and for the truth. She brewed tea and opened her journal. Some doors once shut must remain closed, she wrote. Blood may bind, but respect sustains. Without respect there is no family. She closed the journal and turned to her editing desk. The afternoon sun spilled across the floorboards. She checked the evidence folder one more time, not from fear but from discipline. Everything was in order. Every date aligned. Every line supported. She emailed Ruth a brief note. Status calm. Work steady. Ruth replied with a single word. Good. Clara smiled, poured her tea and let the steam rise like a small blessing over the keys. Work blossomed. She hired an assistant named Amy, a bright 22-year-old eager to learn. Why this studio? Clara asked during the interview. Amy said, because your pictures are honest and I want to learn how to be brave with a camera. Clara felt something warm settle in her chest. Bravery is built, she said. We build it together. Within weeks they were on the road. Kibra at dawn, Carriacre at noon, Ngong Hills at sunset. Amy carried light stands while Clara coaxed stories out of strangers with gentle questions. Tell me about your hands, she would say to a market woman, and the woman would smile and tell how those hands raised children and twisted braids and counted coins. In the evenings Amy asked, Ma'am, why do you work so hard when you have already proved yourself? Clara answered softly, because each image is more than money. It's proof I survived. It's proof I turned pain into beauty. Amy nodded, eyes shining. In the quiet of night, Clara backed up the day's work, labeled drives and set the next day's plan. She wasn't just rebuilding. She was building something new, work, trust, and a small family that chose each other. 2 months later, Clara received an email with the subject line, Tourism Board, Tanzania Campaign. She clicked, heart racing. The board wanted her to shoot the Serengeti Plains, lions at dawn, Maasai dancers at sunset. The contract was worth $5,600, the biggest she had ever signed. She packed her gear, called Amy, and together they traveled across the border. Clara crouched in the grass at sunrise, her camera steady as golden light spilled across the savannah. Do you feel it? She whispered to Amy. Amy nodded, her eyes wide. It feels alive. The campaign was published worldwide, her name printed under images of wild landscapes. As she flipped through the glossy magazine later, Clara thought of her father's false claims. He had tried to drown her in lies, but her name now floated higher than ever. Back in Nairobi, her Aunt Juliet appeared at the studio with a basket of fruit. She placed it gently on the table and sighed. Your parents are struggling, Clara. They have nothing left. Can't you forgive them? Clara looked at her aunt calmly. Forgiveness is not the same as forgetting, she said. They destroyed my trust. They used my name for lies. Would you forgive that, Aunt? Juliet lowered her gaze, silent. Clara picked up her camera bag and walked her aunt to the door. I hope they find peace, she said softly. But not through me. When Juliet left, Clara threw the fruit away untouched. She brewed tea, turned back to her desk and whispered, "Some gifts carry poison. Best not to taste." At night, Clara sometimes dreamt of the koi pond. She would see the laptop sinking, bubbles rising, her father's smirk frozen above the water. But instead of waking with fear, she woke with determination. She would brew tea at dawn, open her files and start working. "They thought they buried me," she whispered once, staring at the sunrise. "But I was a seed." Amy, noticing Clara's relentless drive, asked one morning, "Madam, why do you never rest?" Clara smiled faintly. "Because every photo is proof I turned betrayal into beauty." Amy nodded, inspired. Together they carried their cameras into villages and towns, capturing resilience where others saw only dust. For Clara, each shutter click was not just art, it was resistance. Her story spread beyond Kenya. Invitations poured in. A photography conference in Cape Town. A workshop in Kigali. A gallery show in Accra. In Cape Town, Clara stood before hundreds of young photographers. Her slides displayed sunsets and market women, but her words cut deeper. "Never let anyone, even family, steal your worth," she told them. "Guard your name, your work, and your spirit. Those who love you will respect you. Those who don't will try to use you." The audience erupted in applause, many wiping tears. Clara's chest swelled. Her pain had become a lantern for others, lighting their path. Word of her success reached her parents, of course. Through relatives, Clara heard they had tried to attend her gallery opening, but no one welcomed them. Old friends avoided them, investors ignored them. Their world had shrunk to whispers in dim apartments. Clara listened with steady silence. "They built this with their own hands," she thought. "It is not mine to fix." She hung new frames on her studio wall, photographs of desert skies and proud children. Turning off the lights, she murmured, "I will not carry their shadows anymore." Her studio grew into something larger. Clara expanded the Light Project, offering free workshops for young photographers who couldn't afford school. "Art is not about the best camera," she told her students. "It's about the best heart." The children listened wide-eyed, their hands shaking as they held donated cameras. Some called her Mama Clara. Watching their excitement, she thought, "This is the family I was meant to build." She no longer sought validation from parents who betrayed her. She found joy in the laughter of her students and the sparks in their eyes. One day, David visited the studio. He looked nervous as he held a small box. "I found this in my mother's attic," he said. Inside were old photos of Clara as a child, smiling beside her parents. Clara's throat tightened. David whispered, "They were not always like this." Clara nodded slowly, then closed the box. "People change," she said. "Sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. I can't carry who they used to be. I must live with who they are now." She set the box aside, poured David tea and said, "At least you see the truth now. That matters." Her parents made one last desperate move. A local newspaper published an article, "Daughter Abandons Parents in Their Time of Need." Clara read it, shaking her head. Instead of anger, she emailed the journalist her folder of evidence. Emails, screenshots, slanderous posts. Within a week, the paper issued a retraction. Parents exploited daughter's success in fraud attempt. The truth was undeniable. Clara folded the newspaper and whispered, "Lies always stumble when they meet light." She felt no triumph at their downfall, only freedom. Clara's career soared higher. London invited her for a solo exhibition titled Eyes of Africa. Her photographs drew crowds, critics calling her work a heartbeat on canvas. She walked through the gallery in awe, listening as strangers marveled at her vision. "This is my name," she whispered. "Not drowned in a pond, not buried under lies, written in light." Back in Nairobi, she expanded the Light Project into a registered foundation. Children who once had nothing now held cameras with pride. Amy grinned as she watched them. "Madam, you planted seeds in ashes," she said. "Now you are harvesting forests." Her parents, meanwhile, vanished into obscurity. Some said they moved to a rural village where no one knew their shame. Claire never sought them out. She had drawn her line long ago. Instead, she focused on her work, her students, her foundation. "Family ties may wound," she wrote in her journal, "but wounds can also birth wisdom. Blood connects bodies, but truth connects souls." She closed the book, placed it on her desk and smiled softly. Betrayal no longer weighed her down. It had become her teacher. Years passed. Clara's name traveled far. Exhibitions in Dubai, Toronto, Lagos. Each time, audiences marveled not only at her photographs but at her resilience. She often stood quietly in the corner, listening as strangers repeated her words. Never let family ties excuse exploitation. The phrase spread like a proverb. Clara never set out to be a teacher of life, but her scars had written lessons louder than any textbook. Watching her students grow, she thought, if my pain became their strength, then nothing was wasted. Amy grew into a strong photographer herself. One evening she approached Clara nervously. "Madam, I want to start my own studio one day." Clara smiled warmly. "That is the dream, Amy. You must soar beyond me." Instead of fear or jealousy, Clara felt joy. She had once feared losing everything, but now she saw abundance everywhere. Betrayal had taught her to guard her resources, but wisdom taught her to open her hands when the right people came. She hugged Amy and whispered, "Family is not who takes from you. It's who grows with you." Clara's foundation expanded into Ghana, Uganda, and South Africa. In each country she launched programs for young artists, handing out cameras and teaching workshops. "Your pain can be your power," she told them. Students clapped, inspired. Local leaders praised her as a cultural ambassador. One headline read, "The woman who turned wounds into windows of light." Clara laughed when she saw it. "This is not about my father," she thought. "This is about me." In her later years, Clara built a training center outside Nairobi. She named it House of Light. It welcomed hundreds of students, offering shelter, guidance, and hope. As she walked through its halls filled with laughter and clicking cameras, she whispered, "This is what Betrayal built, a fortress of truth." Universities in Europe and America studied her story, quoting her journals in leadership courses. Clara received an email from a professor in Canada. "Your words guide my students as much as your pictures." She replied simply, "The world is full of wounds. If my story helps, then my pain was not wasted." One evening, Clara stood in her garden, watching the sun sink behind the horizon. Birds soared across the orange sky. She thought of her journey. The koi pond, the lies, the slander, the gallery lights in Paris and London, the cheers of her students. She closed her eyes and whispered, "They tried to drown me, but I became the water. They tried to bury me, but I became the seed." Her eyes sparkled with peace. Clara was no longer the daughter defined by betrayal. She was the woman who turned pain into eternal light. Her name lived not in her parents' shadows, but in the hearts of students who carried cameras into the world. Clara smiled softly. Family does not define destiny. Choices do. And with that truth, her story closed in triumph. Moral lesson. True family is not defined by blood but by respect, love, and trust. Betrayal can wound deeply, but resilience and self-worth can turn pain into strength. Guard your name, protect your work, and choose yourself when others try to tear you down. For in those choices lies unstoppable freedom. What would you do? Choose forgiveness or walk away? Drop your thoughts below. I read every comment. Don't forget to like, subscribe for more stories of betrayal, revenge, and healing. Your support helps this channel grow.